Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. We're here in Brookshire County on our Portland bus line, and in this video we're going to be expanding our passenger services, both bus and train lines, since now that all of our cities have upgraded streets and have started filling in the empty spaces, there is a lot more ground for us to cover across the whole map in terms of our passenger transit. And so again, our main focus is going to be expanding the bus networks in a lot of our cities. We can see Roswell is slowly starting to fill in the empty spaces that were left from our big redesign in the last video. So we might come to this city last, but pretty much we're going to go around to some of these other cities, such as Lincoln here, and we're going to redo some of the bus networks. We're going to try to get more coverage, more efficient coverage, so we'll clean things up. Instead of maybe just one loop for all of Lincoln, we'll split it into 2 or 3 lines that go through the city. And we also might extend the streets in some areas where it makes sense, just to help close off some of these lines and plan for future expansion. But for the most part, that's pretty much what we're going to do around every city on the map that needs it. And then if we have time at the end, we're going to head back to Roswell and do some detailing on the goods factory that sits right on the boundary of the city. And so let's start here in our main capital city of Houston. I think we're going to clean up this area a little bit. We'll fix the street grid out here. And then I like the lines that we already have. I think what we're going to do is just sort of extend them. So for instance, we'll probably get another stop out here on this line. We might even get a new one running up here. We'll extend this line farther up in the city. Maybe get a new one on this edge. We'll see. That one might not cover as much, but it is one that will probably be needed eventually. And then we'll also get maybe another bus running along the river, and then potentially this road here running up to the train station. And then once we cover all of that, we might also start thinking about some of our truck traffic issues, as we are starting to get some piling up here behind this bus stop. We might move the location of this, or maybe use a waypoint to redirect some of these trucks so that this road isn't so heavily used and we're not limiting ourselves with all this backed up traffic here. But first, I think we're going to need to figure out how we're going to handle this. So let's get this area situated first, and then when we come back, we'll be ready to set up our bus lines. Alright, so now I think this street grid works well enough. We do have this hill here, which I'm not really sure what I want to do with it. I think maybe in the future this might be a good spot to have like a shopping center. So that would be sort of like a custom build that we put in here. But I think that would be cool to have sort of right here along this long straight road by the water. So this area could be just a shopping area. I'm not sure what I want to do with this hill. I kind of like it here as it does give a little bit of flavor to the area. We did flatten out this portion of it just so we could fill this in, but I think I'm open to suggestions on this hill here. I'm not opposed to getting rid of it, but I'm also not opposed to keeping it, as it could be a fun challenge, and maybe we could turn it into something fun farther on in the future. So let me know if you guys have any ideas for this, but now I think we're in a position where we can start to think about and put together some more bus routes. Now there is some things that I want to add in this area to help a little bit more with some of the immersion. So much like we did up at the lake area, I want to add in some of these person magnets so that we can generate demand in areas like our harbor area here, sort of simulate jobs coming in, people that need to come in and park. So I think we'll do that here at this industry, and then down here at this port. I don't think we necessarily need to do it at these oil wells, at least not yet. But we will want to have a street connection because that will force cars to come in. Which means, I think maybe we could put it here, and this would at least look like these buses have a way to come in. Now we wouldn't have any parking for people, but it would at least look correct with these buses here. So let's see if maybe there's something we can figure out that would look good in this area. And so what I think we'll want to do here is put some industrial demand. We'll keep this capacity low since it doesn't necessarily need to be a huge amount of demand. We can always come back and adjust this later. And it looks like everything here is correct. So let's just get this placed. We'll have to override the collision with the collision tile. We'll try to get this as close as possible to the intersection. And now we have that placed where we can still click it and configure it. So I'm pretty happy with that. And then down here, I'm not too sure what we're thinking about doing. We do need to upgrade the streets down here. So let's find our large street. We'll extend this pretty much to here. We are going to have to redo this area, I think, to allow for a larger street to come straight through this area. But for now, I think this is okay. I think we will upgrade from dirt streets. And so we'll use this street and upgrade. I guess to here works. We do have these dirt connections. So I don't want to go too crazy with upgrading the streets and making this look out of place. It looks like we do need to upgrade this street, however. So we'll get this replaced with a medium road, and that should do the trick. So now that should work. Now, as for where we want our transportation coming in, I'm thinking maybe here could be a good spot for it. I hope I didn't delete anything we had in this area, but I do like the idea of this continuing to be our station, and then maybe over here is where we'll have the parking lot for people that would work in this area. So we're not necessarily going to build up that parking lot right now, but we will create space for it, and we'll get the the magnet in here just so we can still simulate that demand. And so we'll make this demand a little bit higher. I believe we would still want to consider this industrial. So we'll have that there. That should work. We have, let's take that down to 70. I don't want to go too crazy because then we'll get a crazy amount of cars coming into this area. As we can see, we're already getting a few cars coming into this one. So this is something we'll have to keep an eye out for and sort of balance as it goes on, as we don't want a crazy amount of cars coming in here, which it looks like is what's happening. We can always pull up our destinations layer and see that the demand to get into this area is much higher than a lot of our surrounding streets. Now granted, we also don't have public transportation to this area, but I do think it's just slightly higher than what we would want it to be. So I think we'll take this down to 40. This is something we'll monitor as time goes on again, but I think that'll be good. And now I think we can start expanding our existing bus lines. So for instance, this one, I don't think we need to bring it down any farther, as this one covers pretty much all the streets up until our large street down here. However, I think we will add another stop farther up this way. And so we'll just have to come in here, grab our bus/tram stops, and I think putting it up here right before this intersection will work, because eventually I think we're going to have a line come across this way, so this can end up being a transfer point between those two lines. Now we will... Actually, I think this creates two separate stations, so unfortunately we do have to keep them on the same side of the intersection for them to be considered the same stop. But now what we can do is, instead of starting here, we can come down to our last stop, which is down here. We'll have it run up to this one, and then come up to this one, where it'll turn around and continue going through this line. And we'll keep the same amount of buses on it, since it doesn't seem like it's carrying too many people anyway. It really hasn't been earning us much money for quite a while, so I don't think we need to increase the amount of buses on this line. Next, we will look at this line, which I think we'll just simply extend to this intersection here. So again, we'll grab some more bus stops. And actually, I think we'll go one extra intersection out and go here, since we'll have a stop going on this line. And then we'll do the same thing here. We'll extend this route. So we'll find number 6, which is right here. We'll bring it to this one, and then out to here. And I'm fine with it doing this turnaround. Although, the only thing we might do is switch it to the other side, just so that it doesn't have to cross its own path. And this one is doing really well, because this one connects us up to our train station. So I think we're going to look at these, and these ones don't need upgraded, but I think we will get 2 more buses on this route. And so that'll help carry a significant amount of people into the train station. Once we set up this line and then this line up here, I think this area of the city will really start to flourish with the bus demand. But continuing on, we have this line here that also connects us to the train station. And so I think our next stop is going to be right across the river, probably on this street. So let's see, it looks like the one up here doesn't cross the river, so that's good. We'll just get this placed right about here. And yet again, we'll manage the line. So we'll look for our 4th stop, have that come into here, and then down this way. And I'm not sure if we have... Well, it looks like we have a bus stop on both sides, so I'm not sure what's happening. We might have to redo this. Alright, so we got this figured out. We just had the stations in the wrong order, but now this should stop down here. And this brings us into our next biggest problem, which is all of these trucks coming up this way to go into Houston. Now, unfortunately, I'm not sure if there's an easy way to change this. What we can do is come into our streets, grab this street, and actually just extend this out this way. And then we have sort of a road that they can turn and then go back up this way into the city, which doesn't look like that automatically changed any of our routes. So let's just make sure, first of all, this truck stop is in the right location still. So we'll find our truck unload stop. And it does look like this could be moved over a little bit. Or we might even be able to split this into two separate lines. I'm not sure exactly if that's what we want to do. If we take a look at how the city is currently growing, it seems like this area is largely all commercial. This area is all residential, and then down here is our industrial area, which actually works quite nicely for how we have this city laid out. The only issue is that we're having our commercial demand start to creep up towards this train station. And although I'm not opposed to it, it does present us some challenges with delivering up to there. I don't think I'm ready to make any drastic changes with that yet. We could just come through and delete all these commercial buildings, but I think for the time being, we're just going to move this truck stop over a little bit so that it covers more tools. And I think what would be the best spot is right here on this side street above our main road. So we'll have to pause this and then replace it here and hope that's close enough. So it looks like that is. And that doesn't seem to change anything yet again. So really all we should have to do is place down waypoints here and here. And then we should be able to manually change this so that they come this way. And then on the return trip, they come through this waypoint. And now that'll free up a lot of space for our buses coming up and down this road, and we shouldn't have to worry too much about traffic building up now. And then speaking of traffic, we have a lot of traffic here with this oil line. I think we have better trucks that we can use to replace these. So let's just compare our trucks quick. Currently we're using these Benz Tarpaulin trucks, and I guess really we do have slightly better options with this tank truck. I think it might be worth it. We'll just have to look at what our rate is here, and then when we upgrade this, we'll have to sell a couple just to keep up that old rate, since we don't really want to go overboard, but we do want to free up some space. And so we might have actually sold a few too many. So 47, that lowers our vehicle count between these two spots by, I think, like 5 or 6 it was. So it's not anything huge, but it is an improvement. And so now continuing on this bus line, we do have this line that goes down our main street, which we will then extend once we grab our bus stops to the end of this road, and then all the way over to the end of this road as well. Alright, so now this line has been extended. I don't think we need to increase our buses on this line, so we'll keep that. And I believe that's all of our lines extended, or at least the ones that could be extended. So next, it's time to add our new lines. So again, I think we're going to add one here. We're going to add one coming across this way. And then we're going to add one coming down this road. Although there's not really much development for it to come into just yet. But hopefully that will come out this way soon. And then we'll have our last line coming across on this road all the way through. And I suppose while we're at it, we might as well upgrade this street to match the 4 lanes that we have right here. Alright, so let's grab our bus/tram stops. We might need to upgrade this one. We'll see what happens, but we have this stop here. And then we're pretty much going to follow the same rhythm that we have everywhere else. So we'll have one stop right past this main street. We'll have another stop right at the corner with this stop. And then we'll have one last stop all the way out here. Although again, this one's not going to serve much at the moment until the residential area continues to fill out. And then moving on to the next line, it'll go here, down to here, and then right before the main street, and then one down here after we cross the bridge. And then as for our last line, this one's also going to terminate at the train station. And this one's going to come, I think we'll have it come down to here just so it doesn't overlap with the train station, but it's still within reach of these, which might be important. We'll have it stop again right here, and then again after it crosses the bridge. And then our line across the river, again following the same pattern. We'll just get this in, and then we'll set up buses on all these lines, and then we can finally move on to the next city that we want to get to. Alright, and then now that we have all of our bus lines set up, I quickly want to come through and just expand this stop real quick. I do want to come in here and get like a really detailed stop in, but we're not going to be focusing on that for now. We're going to be focusing on just getting things set up and running. So we should start to see a lot more people moving around and a lot more diverse routes across the city. We do have some overloaded stops still, but hopefully with these new bus routes, we should be able to ease that a little bit. And so the next city we're going to take a look at is Salt Lake City. This one actually has a pretty easy street grid laid out, so it's not going to be too hard to expand on it. One thing we will do is fix whatever is going on here. We'll extend this street grid out maybe 1 or 2 more blocks, and then we'll get some bus services expanded that is currently running through this city. Alright, so now Salt Lake City is pretty much done. Unfortunately, I think our road grids got a little bit unaligned over in this area, so we had to sort of do a reset here with this road. I think maybe in the future we'll delete this road and splice it into 2 smaller blocks so it matches the size of these roads a bit more, but for now I think this is okay. I do want to get a bus line going across the city on this road, but we have this tram depot sort of in the way right now, and I'm not too sure what I want to do with it. I want to create a special road depot area, which might end up being out more towards on this peninsula here, before we just sort of move this around to wherever. I want to have a final spot for it before we add this bus line, but everything else is covered. We have this stop here, and then this one up here. Now, we are running into some traffic issues, but I think that might just be because of all of our buses that we just released on our lines. Our 2 new lines that we added is this one, which sort of hugs this outer edge of the city, with some critical stops here at the train station to hopefully help get people on this side of the city in. And then we added this line over here, which should help with this side of the city getting around more. And then of course we extended some of our existing lines, so this one comes around to this area, this line extends all the way out to here, and then again farther in the future we'll have another line coming across this way, but that's just not in play at the moment. And then I do want to get another person magnet down in this area eventually, but I think I want to wait for this traffic to settle in, and for this area to be a little bit more complete before we add that in, as there's a bit more detailing I want to do with this area, fill it in a bit more, fill this space in, and refine over here. So that might be a project on its own eventually, but we'll leave that for now and continue moving on through our cities. So next we have Portland, which is going to be a little bit tricky as this doesn't have a regular street grid and things are, quite frankly, a mess. But we do have some critical routes that we can connect. For instance, of course, coming out to here on this line, I think we do have an opportunity here. We won't come across this bridge, but connecting here up to here. And then we have a few roads that do run through most of the city that we might just turn into a line. So I think we might do one down along the river here, or maybe even on this street, and then we'll follow this street here. So I think we'll go with that. We'll fix the street grid out this way a bit more, and then once we come back, we should have a bus network in Portland. Alright, so now our Portland bus lines are pretty much sorted out. I'm not really happy with how this city is. I don't like that this main road comes and just sort of dies at the river. I think eventually at some point we want to move this and then maybe merge it with this road. But that's going to be very sort of intrusive to the city and take a lot of time. So I want to get to all of the cities in one video if possible, so we'll have to save that project for another time. But we now have 4 bus lines going through the city. We have this one here that connects to our train station. We have the one that follows the river connecting to our train station. We have this one, and then this one here. And this, I think, semi-logically covers most of the city. Again, I think the fact that this main road just sort of dies into the river really doesn't help our bus network, and so that's going to be something that we end up changing in the future. But for now, I think we're doing just fine. So let's head over to Allentown, and then we'll get started on the changes that need to happen in that city. And so now we have Allentown, which really just has one tiny bus loop going around. So there's really a lot that we can fix up here to improve our bus network. Just thinking about what we want to do, I think we'll have one coming down the middle here. We'll have one line coming this way. We'll have another one on this road so that it connects to this bus stop here. Of course, we'll have one on this road, and then we'll have another one farther up this way. And then we might also get one going up and down on this street, and then all the way down here on this street. So that'll be quite a few new lines added to this city. And once again, we'll be back once this is all finished up. Alright, so now all of our bus lines in Allentown are set up. You can see all the buses starting to head into the city now. Everything is also upgraded, as we did actually still have horses running in Allentown. But now these are all new updated buses. We should start to see Allentown really grow, and I think pretty soon we're going to have to extend the street grid in this city to accompany that growth. But continuing to move on, let's now follow our train line over to Pittsburgh, where Pittsburgh really doesn't need much in terms of new bus lines, as I think it's set up pretty well. The only things we might change is extending this line and this line farther up to cover these areas. But other than that, I don't think there's much we need to do at the moment. I think we are going to add a road connection across the river here and maybe redo this connection so we don't have all these buses and trucks getting stuck here. We can see, although some of them are using this way, we do have a truck stop here, which is taking some of that traffic. So I think if we can get a bridge across this spot here, that'll help alleviate some of our truck and bus traffic coming into this point of the city. And so we really only have one stop coming in here. We might just switch this. So instead of coming into here, we'll have it come into this stop here. And then we'll just get rid of this station as it's not really needed. So then what we'll want to do is find the matching street that we're using here. And then we'll just simply want to drag this like so. We'll bring it across the river, although I think we'll extend this street first. And now for this line, we do need to allow boats to come under. So it might be a little tricky to get this working. We might need to flatten some of the land along here so we can get a nice landing spot for the road. But now that we have that, we can raise this up just until we have enough height to allow some boats to go under. We'll use one of our newer, fancier bridges. And then we'll also fine-tune this just high enough to allow boats under. And so now we should be able to let this play. I like that it did curve out that road. And hopefully we should see this route is now coming through here to take the food up the river on this side of Pittsburgh. So that should help out with some of this traffic. It might not clear it up completely, so this might be something that we need to fix in the future. But I think really now all that's left for us to do is extend this bus line and this one. So I think we'll go out to here, and then up this way, we'll come up to this spot. I believe we still cover, so we don't cover some of these in the middle here. We might need to get a new line eventually once we build out this side of the river and this side a bit more. But really all we should have to do now is come in here, manage the line, find our existing line. So that will come around like so. And then all the way over here, we can have this come around and come back up. And really this could end up being a loop, but for now I think we'll leave it as this U shape. And then of course we'll have to upgrade the buses and get a few more. Well, I guess we have enough buses on this line, but we will upgrade them just for the sake of being up to date on these buses. And I think we'll leave Pittsburgh off like this for now. And so then that leaves us with Tacoma as our next city. Really this just needs a whole new bus network. Similar to Allentown, it's just one tiny loop. So we'll get one on this road here. I think we'll get one on each of these two roads that cross our train tracks. And then we might get one more out this way. This city's a little tricky as we do have to work around the train tracks a bit, but I think if we do the lines that we just stated, we should be able to do this while still covering pretty much everything that we need. Alright, so now Tacoma's bus lines are out and beginning to move around. We already see a lot of people lining up at some of these stops here. So there's definitely a ton of demand around. We will need to keep an eye and make sure our buses are able to handle it, but that might be something we come through and do at the end of the video. But I think Tacoma is doing just fine now. So next we will move down the river to our city of Lincoln, where I believe we do have two lines here, and I'm not sure if there's really much more we could do. I suppose we could have a line coming up this way, as these two lines do pretty much cover most of the city. I think that's what we'll do. This isn't something I necessarily like, but I think we'll do something like this. We'll have to delete that road, or that stop, and then we'll get one stop that serves hopefully most of up here. We will want to develop this area on top of the hill a bit more in the near future, but for now I think a simple line like that should cover most of what we need. And I believe we actually need to get our buses from all the way out here. So this will just be a simple, probably 4-bus addition. And so we'll just get that going. And then we can, I think, finally move on from all of these bus lines. Alright, so we are going to leave Roswell as it is, since it is still recovering from our redesign. So I don't want to build lines. For instance, I don't want to build a line that goes all the way out here if the city's not going to build out there just yet. So I want to wait for the city to come back and reach its target population before we fix some of these, because I think it might benefit us to have just a line here, maybe a line that comes up and then around like this, and then one on our main road. Maybe something like that would work. But of course, I want to wait and see where demand sort of gets driven to as the city continues to reach its target population. And so our last project here is going to be making this goods factory look good. Now, I am wondering if maybe this is the best thing to, if we should keep this industry or not, since the goods factory is a little hard to detail around since it is so different, but we might try to just keep it. We'll keep the industry here and we'll try to detail around it. I think we can make it look good. We'll try our best. Of course, we'll detail the truck station, get a little bit more going on with this train station here, and then hopefully once all that's finished, we'll be good to pretty much end the video off there. So let's get into detailing this goods factory, and then when we come back, we should have a nice area here for our goods to come in and out of. Alright, now we are back here at our goods factory, and I'm pretty happy with how this area ended up. Unfortunately, when we moved our station, our train line broke, and we haven't been able to bring new resources in here, so unfortunately this industry did downgrade all the way to level 0, but hopefully we should have a train coming back from the steel mill that should be full on steel, and that should get the goods factory back up and running once it makes its way back to this goods factory. But for now, I think this looks pretty good. We have these truck stations here. Unfortunately, they all had to be separate, but I think it came out pretty nice. You can kind of see they don't perfectly line up, but I think they look fine from a distance. We do have this area here to replicate some more of these goods buildings, and I think farther on in the future, once this gets fully up and running, I think this is going to be one of our only goods factories on the map, so we might get another industry here to help fill out this space, and then over here we'll have something, and then maybe we can square off some of the ends of this train station a bit more farther in the future, but I think for now this works pretty well for what it is, and I think now we can just take a look around and make sure that everything that we've done so far is operating how we want it to. Alright, so now coming back to Houston, it looks like almost all of our bus stops have people waiting at it, which is great to see. We will need to rebalance some of these, it appears, as some of these just have a ton of people waiting. It even looks like our bus line down here is getting some use, which is good to see. Let's look down here and see if we have any bad traffic from private demand coming to this person magnet that we placed earlier. And I don't see too many private vehicles, which is a good sign. I think that means we got this almost about right for what we wanted to see. We can come in here and look at our destinations layer just to see too how much demand that's generating, and this looks to be about perfect. We don't have any here, but that could also be because we have this bus stop here and people are getting off at this bus stop and walking, since this destinations layer doesn't show people walking. I believe it only shows vehicles, so I think that's actually working out very well. I believe this person did just leave this area, but maybe if we watch these guys, if these guys come and walk into this area, I think that means we've set this up properly. And if not, I think we might have to bump up the demand just a little bit to get some more people coming here. And unfortunately, it looks like neither of those people came and stopped here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to bump this. Well, I guess we did keep it at 50. But we might bump that up to 60. Hopefully there's not any issues going on, and it's just that people are taking public transportation. We're just not seeing it. But I think this is all going well. We can take a look here at our destinations layer just to see where people are going. And it definitely all seems to be going into this train station, which, looking at it, we need to handle our trains. So let's also take a look at Salt Lake City and Portland before we end up making any changes. But Salt Lake City looks to be handling the change pretty well. We are now getting a ton of people at this train station, and demand seems to be pretty spread out evenly across the board. It looks like this line and maybe even our tram line might need some help. So let's upgrade these buses, and we'll get 4 more on this line actually, because it is technically 8 stops. I think that'll help. And then moving over to Portland, Portland also seems to be doing all right with people waiting at each bus stop. This one seems to be doing a lot. It looks like everyone here is waiting to get onto the train. And so I think what that means is we're going to have to throw on a few more buses on this line. But this is all temporary, as we do want to change Portland. But taking a look here now, it does seem like we now have enough demand in all of our cities to drastically upgrade these trains. And so let's come in here and see what we can do with this. Ideally, I'd like to keep the same engine, as the engine wasn't too bad. I believe it was this New York Central Hudson engine. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like we have any more powerful versions of this. So we'll just have to pick one that we like. And actually, taking a look here, I think these trains are actually doing pretty well for us. There's not really much we can improve. So I think what we might do is we'll come in and I think we'll throw on an extra car on each one of these. But other than that, I don't think there's much more we can do without seriously starting to compromise the top speed of these trains. We're still able to get pretty close to around 100 miles an hour in a decent amount of time, 4 minutes and 11 minutes. So we'll go ahead and modify those. But I think it's going to come down to us just simply adding a fourth train onto this line, as we just have so many people wanting to go between these cities. And so we have this new train coming out of the train depot here. We can see just how long it is. I'm not sure if I want to get much longer than this on our passenger trains. But we are going to have to start to do something about the huge demand between these cities. So I think we'll just leave this. We'll let the trains run. And that should hopefully start to dwindle the demand, or at least the amount of people waiting at each station here. As we can see, we have 600 in Houston. We have over 600 in Salt Lake City. And then Portland is pushing its upper limit at about 500. And so now that we've done that, let's see if there's any other lines that we could improve for our trains. I think our Houston to Tacoma train here is doing alright. I'm not sure if it quite warrants an upgrade just yet. Although this station is getting pretty full, so maybe we will take a look at these. Let's just take a look at the details of this train. So it does have a top speed of 75 miles an hour. I'm not sure if these vehicles are old, or maybe we can edit them and throw on some more cars. Actually, I think we'll leave these, and our solution is just going to be adding a third train. I think that's going to be our solution for a lot of these, is just starting to pump up the volume that we have running on these lines, just because of how long it takes to get between cities. And since we are limited in our capacity due to the weight of some of the passenger cars, we're going to have to pretty much wait for stronger steam engines to come out, or maybe as we slowly ease into the electric era and diesel era, we can start to get more powerful trains that can pull many more cars behind them. But continuing to go around, it looks like our next line that we want to look at is Pittsburgh to Tacoma. And we'll check over on the Pittsburgh end of this. And it definitely seems like there's some demand. Not a huge amount, but there is some. It does have a good top speed. And so I think this is also just another case of getting a second train going. Pittsburgh might not always fill up on its end, but the Tacoma end of the line definitely needs more people coming out of it. And then Lincoln to Tacoma, I think, is doing just fine. It looks like it's doing just fine on this end. And then our Pittsburgh-Roswell-Lincoln line, this might need an upgrade. And so we might just upgrade these trains to be similar to what we have running out of Houston. So we'll take a look at some of these engines. And so I think we'll go with another one of these New York Central Hudson engines. I'm not seeing much else that I really want to use. And so I think if we replace all three of these engines with a train like this, we should start to do much better in handling this demand, as Roswell is certainly begging for more trains coming through. That station is entirely overloaded. And then in Pittsburgh, that is also our most in-demand line as well. So I think maybe even a fourth train might be warranted on this line, since the distance between Pittsburgh and Roswell is so far. That distance might be what's causing everything to build up at our stations. And then the next line we want to look at is Allentown to Pittsburgh, which doesn't really have much demand, but that could just be because the Pittsburgh line or the Pittsburgh station was getting pretty full. And I think I'm okay with leaving the train as it is for now. Let's just make sure. So it is 2 trains, so I think this is fine to leave as it is until we get a more accurate sort of reading out of Pittsburgh. I think we do need to start increasing the size of some of our stations to allow more people in, but I believe that covers all of our trains, and those should be doing pretty well now. And then one final thing that caught my eye with our trains is I think we need to turn this into a tunnel, because some people have mentioned how long some of these bridges are, and that's a bit unrealistic. I don't think it's unrealistic to have maybe 1 or 2 long bridges across the map. So like this one I think is fine, but I don't want to go crazy with super long span bridges. So I think this we're going to turn into a tunnel under the river, and then we'll also make it 2 tracks wide so we don't have trains having to wait for another train to come through, especially on this line between Portland and Salt Lake City. That's really just hurting us in the long run, especially with these trains starting to run on a bit of a tighter margin for money. Alright, and so now we have this tunnel in here. It does need a bit more cleaning up, but I think it works well for now. It does come under the river, and hopefully we will see this train as it goes through. We just want to make sure that the slope isn't too steep that it can't really come back up and out. But if not, we can just work with it. But I believe that will pretty much be it for all of our trains and such. So with that finished, let's take a look at everything we've done in this episode so far, and then when we come back, we'll talk about some of our future projects and some things to look forward to. Alright, and so now that we're back, let's talk about some future projects. And first, starting here in Roswell, we do want to get the bus lines connected up here and do all that. So that will probably be the first thing we do once Roswell fills up. Again, it is getting closer. We can see it's finally rebounding, but it will take some time for the city to rebound. And then I think next we're finally going to come back to this cargo hub and connect up the construction materials, get more resources coming out of it. I don't think we have much more to do before this, so I think this is definitely our next step. And then after that, we did talk about airports, and so we'll get some airports set up across the map. We'll probably have one here outside of Roswell, as that's a pretty nice flat area to have one, and then maybe one out by Houston. I think that'll be a good connection to have, and because of the large map size, I think it'll work out pretty well. But let's come and take a look at this goods factory, and we're finally coming back up to speed with it. I think we finally got our first load of steel coming in, and we can start to see how this is functioning. So I think it looks pretty good, and overall I'm pretty happy with how this all turned out. And so with that, that's pretty much going to be all for this episode. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.